Hi, it's another episode of the AFCON Daily show on Citi TV. My name is Nathan Kwao. It's always fun bringing you this. There aren't any games today, but don't worry. We'll guide you all through the competition. We'll talk about a few very interesting things, and then we'll look ahead to we'll look ahead to the semi-finals on another day, possibly tomorrow. But doesn't matter what we do. Just send us your messages on the number 0550-585832. 0550-585832. Would love to read your messages. So please send them in. If you are watching us in Ghana on free to air or digital, or you're watching us outside Ghana on DSTV channel 363 and GoTV channel 182, would love to hear from you. We'll take a very, very quick break. When we come back, I introduce my guests and we have liftoff. It is the AFCON Daily show on Citi TV. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. This is the AFCON Daily show on Citi TV. Let me introduce the guys. The full set's not here, so we'll start with who we have, and later I'm sure they might join. I don't know. Susu Graham is on the touch. Hello, Susu. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
You're good?
Oh, yeah. Very excited today.
The spreadsheet will be out.
Yeah, the spreadsheet will defend itself.
Benjamin Ketia is back. Ben, how are you doing?
I'm good.
Good? All right. We'll begin with, today we'll be doing a bit of an overview on tactics. In every competition, you see patterns, you see trends, you see things that have been helping teams get one win or the other, or get a particular result or the other. So we start off our discussion today looking at tactics. We are asking ourselves, which tactical style has been the most effective? Are teams pressing more? Are they passing more? Are they countering more? What exactly are teams doing? And how and why have those methods paid off for some of these teams who are still in the competition, and for some teams who would consider their run, no matter how short or long it has been, a success depending on their own indicators. So guys, that's where we start our conversation from. Susu, I think you are the one who's leading the charge today. First of all, just before we get into anything, your overall thoughts on the tactical side of things in this competition. What have you noticed? Have you found some of the things interesting? Do they follow a certain pattern? Do they plug into the current trend of, say, European football?
I think we are seeing like a current, like the European trend. I think a lot of players are playing in Europe. A lot of managers have trained in Europe. So I've seen a lot of the big teams, putting the ball on the ground, moving it around, trying to play that short Barcelona tiki-taka style. And then the smaller teams going a bit more direct. And by smaller teams, I mean lesser known lights of African football, not in terms of their quality or their skill, just they are not considered the favorites. So you see a lot of the favorites, putting the ball on the ground, trying to keep it patient, move the ball up slowly, get into in and around the box and find an opening. And you have the smaller teams, sitting deep, knocking it long and trying to make headway. So that seems to be the pattern so far.
All right, interesting, guys. Any thoughts on that before I get back to Susu to give us a few of the things he's noticed?
I think that for most teams, it's been a mix of tactics. So I look at a team like Egypt. They tailor out their game based on the type of opponents they are facing. So Carlos Queiroz will most likely like to cede possession to teams that he thinks have superior quality. If you watch their opening game against Nigeria, it was a game in which Egypt were mainly seeking to attack on the counter. But if you watch the subsequent games that they played, for instance, that game against Morocco, they began in a similar fashion, allowing the Moroccans to have a lot of the ball. And then as the game wore on, I think they sensed that their Moroccan counterparts were a little wary from all the intense running and pressing. So they stepped up the ante a little bit. And you also realize that just like most of the teams that Carlos Queiroz has coached, especially if I go back to the immediate national team I remember, which is Iran, he likes to tailor his attack through the team's star player.
Okay.
I think that was Alireza Yahambash, playing on the right side, just like Mohamed Salah plays now. And then he has a 4-3-3 setup where his number 3 guy out on the left-hand side is sort of coming in as an auxiliary striker to help him. So Egypt have done a mix of things. Senegal, again, have looked to press more and to dictate the play, which I find surprising because it hasn't really yielded results until that game against Equatorial Guinea. It's been a good blend, but I've liked what guys like Sierra Leone and Gambia have done in this tournament. For example, Sierra Leone, they absolutely came out and put in a defensive masterclass. And I say a defensive masterclass because these days a lot of people like talk about parking the bus, but you see, parking the bus is deliberate. It's not as a consequence of being forced back by your opponents. Teams that park the bus are teams that basically come into games looking to defend 80-85 minutes. They enjoy defending. They will not look mentally tired as the game wears on because they are defending. This is basically their game style. This is what they practice in training sessions. And so that was refreshing for me to see, especially like a team that were not being forced into altering their game plan, but actually came out with that type of game plan. So I'm hoping that, I'm actually guessing we'll see a lot more of that, especially in a game of Burkina Faso, Senegal. Okay. I think the Burkinabes have been that type of team. They look to counter what the opponent is doing. They don't throw everything out there. Very cautious approach. It's worked so far pretty brilliantly for them, and I expect to see more of the same. All
right, Daniel, thank you for joining us. Your thoughts broadly in terms of tactics before we get into what Susu has to tell us.
Just to add to what Ben has said, I like the mix which we've seen in this competition. We've seen teams who are extremely attacking, teams who come out wanting to dominate possession, chances created, all those fancy stats. And we've also seen teams who enjoy sitting deep, defending, frustrating the opposition. So it's been a nice blend. It's not like if you watch other competitions, other international competitions. Let me use the Euros for example. They call it the modern type of football where both teams like to have the ball possessed. There's more technical play involved. I sort of like this one because you cannot necessarily tell what you are going to expect in a game. Teams have varied. In fact, teams will even have like a signature style throughout the competition. And Ben has said it. In the game against Morocco, Egypt were completely different from what we've seen them throughout the competition. They dominated, they played, they took the game to the Moroccans. So it's been a nice blend of styles. But of course, I have my favorites. As the show progresses, I'll let you know what I feel is my favorite, what functions for me. Okay, all right. So let's get you. Let's start from your general observations, so that we can pick apart some of the things we've seen and have a broader chit chat about that.
So, like I said, in general, the favorites have tended to keep the ball because I guess there's kind of smaller teams that are a bit more wary of leaving that space for quality players. I mean, if you are playing against Egypt, would you want your left back bombing up and down the pitch to leave Mohamed Salah space? A smart manager would like to sit back. So like we said, it's been a mix of styles. And I think because it's been very predictable based on where you see the team on the quote-unquote favorite skills. So the favorites tend to favor having the ball and the lesser lights tend to defend deeper. But it's worked out very well. It's not been like one style has been more successful than the other. Because you've seen Algeria. Algeria were one of the premier passing teams in the competition. They created a lot of chances, but they were also not able to take those chances, and that's what caused them. I think Morocco and Tunisia also suffered from that to a certain extent. They were some of the better passing teams, but their finishing just wasn't there. So the chance creation was there, but the finishing wasn't. And there's Gambia, who, when you look at the chances created, didn't look as impressive, but they were taking those chances a lot better than other teams. They were using their space a lot better. So even though they weren't taking quote-unquote high-quality chances, they had a bit more space when they were shooting and getting forward because they were playing against teams who had put more men forward. So even when you take a long shot with less people around, there's a higher chance of success than if you're, let's say, an Egyptian player and you're playing against Guinea-Bissau or someone. And Guinea-Bissau have 8 players in the box and you take a shot from outside the box. Your chances of success are lower because of all of those bodies. But when Gambia take it, there's only maybe 3 players in the box. So those type of things have contributed to why maybe it looks like the kind of favorites have not created as many chances with their passing football. And whilst the kind of lesser lights have been able to create more, even though they are not playing, quote-unquote, high-quality, high-chance creation football. So I think you have to consider all of those things. But like they've both said, the mix of tactical styles has been a very interesting competition. Okay. I thought in the Euro, sometimes you got a few boring games where both teams came out and playing the same way and became a player quality issue. Okay. But when it's a tactical style issue, it's not just the players that are winning games. Coaches are winning games. And I think it makes it more interesting. And Gambia is the perfect example. I don't think anyone came to this competition thinking Gambia will be a crazy, team to get to the quarterfinals, do better than a team like Ghana or even Algeria, for example. But here we are where they've had one of a stellar debut AFCON campaign, and they've gone home one of the most memorable teams of the competition.
Interesting. The Gambians coming in for great mention there. Their manager, Tom Saint-Fiti, guided them to the quarterfinal, they lost 2-0 to Cameroon. In a game we dissected the other day, we spoke about their defense and all of that. I know Krante wasn't too happy with the Gambian defense. He thought they made Cameroon's work a bit too easy for them with the defending from the sides. So I don't know if there's anything more, if there are specifics or things you want to highlight, patterns, graphs,
I think
data.
we should just put up this chart I have here and we can talk about where teams are falling, and we can, because I think Daniels might not be a fan of the spreadsheets, but you can see Malawi all the way on the far left. They were like the most direct team in the competition. Okay. And you have Mali on the far right, who are the most kind of short passing team in the competition. If you look at the teams remaining, I think Cameroon, Senegal, Egypt are all in this kind of short passing, play the ball nicely quadrant. And then Burkina Faso are the only team on the left side where the quote-unquote lesser lights have been a bit more direct. So, but I wouldn't say that it shows that short passing football is more effective. I think when you have better players, you can play that way, which is why it looks like it's more effective. But I think it's a function of having better players rather than the strategy itself being better. Because I think every team would like to play that way if they could, because you are keeping the ball from the opposition, and once they don't have the ball, they can't hurt you. But if you don't have the players who can keep the ball, you'd rather not. So I think it's just a function of what tools the manager has rather than it being more effective. I don't want to go as far as to say that.
Interesting. Any thoughts, Daniel?
So can I now tell you what is my favorite and why?
Okay, you tell us.
Okay, yeah. Look, personally for me, possession doesn't mean anything for me. I don't rate. It's one of the most useless stats for me. Possession.
Why?
If you have
keeping the ball is good, isn't it?
Keeping the ball is good if you are creating chances.
If you are
and
creating
scoring
chances,
goals.
okay.
Because, look, let me just give you this scenario. I come into a game, I want to defend 90 minutes, and I want to make a goal. You come into a game, you want to dominate it in terms of chances and create and score goals. Yes. If I sit deep and I'm defending and you have 80% possession, I have 20% possession and it's goalless, I'm satisfied. You are not. Because you have the ball, you've had more opportunities to create opportunities, but you've not been able to. I have sat back and I've stopped you from getting goals. I've stopped you from creating opportunities. Okay. So in that sense, my game plan is working and I have been the better team. But there's this general perception that when you pull up stats and you see 60% to 40%, then it means the person who had more of the ball played a better football. But it doesn't necessarily mean so. I'm of the school of thought that, look, if you don't have the ball, you are less likely to make mistakes. That's how I see it.
That's how you see it?
That's how I see it. If you don't have the ball. When you don't have the ball, you are less likely to make mistakes. And you are more likely to be able to counter your opposition's mistakes. And that's how I see it. That's my philosophy. Of course, by what I've said, you can tell the kind of football I would supervise if I was a head coach. But look, for me, it's all about efficiency. If there are some isolated situations where if you have a group of players that are suited to play that attacking brand of football, yes, I'll go for it. Mm-hmm. But efficiency is a marker for me. I will not be satisfied if I create 10 opportunities and I score 3 goals. I will not be satisfied.
Why?
If I create 10 good opportunities, I should be scoring 7. That's how I see it. I will be more satisfied.
But I've got to account for a number of things. Players can miss chances. They could get their technique wrong.
He accounted for it in the 3 goals that were not scored.
Look, if I'm creating 3 chances in 90 minutes and I score 1, I'm happier than if I create 10 and I score 3. I will not be flattered with a 3-0 win. Yeah. When I create
are we saying 10 high quality chances? And you see, we've seen it in this competition, where the game between Tunisia and Mauritania, Tunisia created some golden. They should have scored at least 6. I will go into the dressing room. I think they scored 4. In fact, 1 came to, I think, one was a penalty. Yeah. I'll go into the dressing room and I'll ask you, where are the rest of the 3 goals? Because it should show. If you are, that's my thinking. Okay, so this the game, Tunisia, Mauritania. This was quite early. This was very early.
This wasn't even a chance.
This wasn't even a chance.
Yeah. Ball dropped outside the box. Guy was just there in the right.
Fired it into the back of the net. This is down to technique and poor goalkeeping. Look, for me, that is what it is. It's all about efficiency. If I am parking the bus, and that's the same way I also translate it to my style. If I'm parking the bus and I get one golden opportunity in the game and I don't take it. That's where I'll be fixated on, because that was the game plan. To defend and get that one chance.
Okay.
And when I get that one chance, I'm supposed to bury it. So that's how I see it. If you have the ball, then you are more likely to make mistakes. That's my philosophy.
Benny, your thoughts?
I definitely agree with Daniel on that. Look, a lot of the times when teams have possession and they tend to pass the ball for long spells, you begin to lose your shape. You begin to lose sight of exactly what you're supposed to do. And most often than not, it's very few teams I've seen that have the consciousness to pass the ball, move forward, and also keep their shape as it stands.
Okay.
Maybe Pep Guardiola's Barcelona, maybe Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool 2 years ago. Very few teams can actually do that. Pass the ball, move forward, and actually keep what you look like or what you're supposed to look like. So most often than not, teams begin to pass, especially when the sequences become long. They're all over the place. And if you are a good defensive team, you can tell when somebody's been pulled out of position, when somebody is slacking on the job because he hasn't touched the ball in a long time. One counter-attack, you link the ball in that particular direction and the whole team is out of place. So I definitely agree. I mean, personally, I love my expansive showboating type of football. I like goals in my football. But in a tournament type setting, I definitely prefer the Burkina Faso type of approach. Very laid back, let your opponents do what they have to do, and then when you get the ball, you make sure that you can inflict some damage. You don't have to expend a lot of time going up and down the pitch. No, let your opponents do that for you. Let them do the running. Mm-hmm. And when the game is in its final phase, say last 15-10 minutes, you will be able to tell that the team that has been doing the most passing will be the warrior of the two teams. Your legs are heavier, your tendency to make mistakes is higher, one long ball up the pitch, and your defense is done.
That's quite easy. Well, then it means that your team will have to stay locked in.
It will have to. That's why
for long periods.
And that's what I'm telling you, that most teams that come in to defend, not the accidental defense type where your game plan is to attack, but then you end up finding out during the game that your opponents are just better, and so they keep the ball and they pin you back. No. Teams like Burkina Faso, teams like the Gambia at points in this tournament have come into games where their main intention has been to sit back, frustrate their opponents, and look for that one golden opportunity to score. Teams like that, yes, they definitely come in extra locked in because they know that their best players are their center halves or their goalkeeper or maybe their defensive midfielder. And so the whole game plan is centered around keeping the back tight, pulling your opponents in, and then putting that long ball in behind them.
Interesting. So your thought, I mean, I don't know what you make. The guys seem to think that in tournament football, of course, 6 or 7 games max in every football competition. So it's just 6 or 7 games spread over 3 weeks. You need to lock in and probably stay alive in all games until your opportunity shows up. I don't know if you would play that. If you
I agree. But it's the only time it works. And unfortunately, most football is not tournament football. Most football is league football. And I think in league football, you need to control as much as you can control. And I think sitting back, there's not a lot of control in what you are doing. You are watching the opposition and hoping they don't create as many chances. You are hoping they make mistakes. In league football, you need to take control. You need to take the initiative. And I think they are a bit wrong about possession. I think Daniel is right in the sense that just passing the ball around in itself has no value. But I think
by this competition, I don't think we've seen a team just passing it around for the fun of it.
Algeria. The game against Equatorial Guinea. In fact, in that game, they were actually outpassed in the second half by Equatorial Guinea. But in the first half, they just seemed to pass the ball in circles and didn't seem to know what to do. They would take an occasional long shot, force a save out to the goalkeeper, but there was nothing really threatening about their play. You could tell that the Equatorial Guineans were not threatened by the Algerian attack.
But on the flip side, we've seen Cameroon equally dominate possession. But like Daniel says, that possession has been very dangerous. That when they get the ball, you know that.
But I even wanted, that was my next point I was coming to say. Possession is very useful when you're in the lead. I think until you've taken the lead, it's not a useful thing because I think it's a different way of defending and killing the game. I think when your opponents need a goal, they are chasing the ball and you're passing around, they will get tired. I think that Benjamin's point about getting tired, it really depends on the game state. I don't think you can say just because a team is passing more, they'll be tired. If the other team is trying very hard to win the ball back, they will tire out and you will take that. And in the later stages of the game, more gaps will open in their defense because they are tired. I think that's something that Pep Guardiola does very well that a lot of people don't give him credit for. They use possession as a defensive tool. So if they take the lead against you, they slow the pace down even more. So now they are passing it around, but you want the ball. they are not moving the ball as far, they are not taking as much risk, and you are doing a lot of pressing, you are running around, you are getting tired, you are drawing out of shape because you are desperate to get the ball because you are behind, and they are killing you slowly because they are killing your spirit. Because mentally, a football player, you don't want to go 20 minutes without the ball, 10 minutes without the ball, knowing you need a goal. It's demoralizing. I think so. Possession has its uses in certain situations. If you are chasing a game and you are playing like Pep's teams usually play and keep the ball around, it's of no use. But if you are ahead, or even if you are in a 0-0 situation where you are like, look, we have a lot to lose, but we don't want to give them the ball, or maybe we don't think our defense is that good, you might want to keep the ball. So I think it's a very situational thing, but I think possession can be very useful. And that's why I think good teams try to use it more, because there's no point giving the ball back as much as possible. That's why you see a lot of teams now, clearances are not as common. And I think you realize this more when you watch your football with your older relatives. They're always like, why don't they clear the ball? And you're just thinking to yourself, we who watch football now a lot more, we are used to teams not clearing the ball as much, because they've realized that, look, why should I give the ball right back to them? Because they're just going to come at us again and put more pressure on our goals. So I think possession has its uses. I think I only agree about 3 out of 10 with everything they've said, because it's a situational thing. But I would prefer my team to keep the ball so that the other team doesn't have it to hit us. I think I'm on the... You can avoid mistakes if you know what you're doing. If you know what you're doing. I think the mistakes part is a bit overplayed, I think.
Okay.
You just finish and then we go for a break.
Look, if you watch, we all watch football. If you've noticed, it is more difficult for managers to instill that passing, possession type philosophy than for managers to sit back. Showing that it's a more difficult brand of football. More difficult because it is extremely difficult to find balance in that system when you keep the ball. And you are keeping the ball with the intention of...
And you need all the players to be at a certain basic technical level.
Because look, when...
That's the most important bit, actually.
It's a natural
Everybody needs
phenomenon.
to be at a certain basic passing level.
It has to be there. And if you have 1 or 2 players who are not comfortable with that, it can upset the whole system. And that's where we translate this into national team football. Let me just use Algeria as an example. After they went out and were reviewing the group stages, I really wish he was here. Fent made a point. He should have been sitting right here. Fent made a point about Algeria going out, but at least they played well, they fashioned chances, they were not able to score. Ghana were just flat. I think it's the same thing. Honestly, because your game plan...
I think the two teams produced just about the same type of performance.
Yes, because your game plan was to fashion out chances, chance after chance after chance, and score. Do they have the players technically gifted enough to get those chances? Yes, they did. So then why didn't they score? It's a collective thing. So it was a failure. In as much as Ghana, who also wanted to sit back and defend. And unfortunately for them, 2 or 3 lapses of concentration also caused them to concede goals. It's the same thing. It's just how you view it. Maybe you like your team to have the ball, create chances, and then you scream O-R-E-R-R, and at the end of the day, you still don't win. I'm very satisfied with my team sitting back, watching the opposition frustrated. And whilst you even watch the opposition with the ball, you can tell that once we get the ball, we can go in this direction, Because once you have the ball and you are playing possession football, there's always space you leave in behind to be exploited.
All right. Yeah. So we've...
Points what Daniel said. I think he's made a good point about counter-attacking and transitions. I think those are some of the most high-quality chances of space. They are not set. So you can create a lot of very high-quality chances. So I do agree with him that counter-attacking does have its uses, but it's very difficult to do that transition, move that ball up the pitch very fast. Problems do happen. And the second thing is what you mentioned about Algeria. I mean, in the end, like Fence scored Ghana flat, but Ghana scored more goals than Algeria. Algeria scored 1 goal the whole group stage. So in the end, their chance creation was not worth much when you look at it, because Ghana ended up with more goals, even though we were quote unquote more flat.
You could give us expected goals.
Everybody's XG. Maybe we can have a look at Algeria's
XG. I don't have it with me right now, but if I remember correctly, the expected goals were much higher, but their finishing was just 0. Our expected goals were not particularly high. I don't think our expected goals even went above 2. Or above 1.5.
I think we may have outperformed our XG. Probably.
Yeah, we
did outperform.
Because that Gabon game, I think our XG was like 0.4 in that game, and then against Comoros was like 1.5 or something like that. So, but it's just, I don't think you can't. If both teams don't score as much and one team scores 1 goal and one team scores 3, I don't think you can call that team that scored 3 flat. Let's be honest.
All right, you're still watching the AFCON Daily Show. Interesting conversation around tactics and all. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll finish up with that, and then we have an interesting quiz concerning the competition so far. Since I'm the quizmaster, I won't be answering any questions, so I'll be giving out the questions. But just stay tuned. We'll do all of that right after this break. This is the AFCON Daily Show on Citi TV.